Hey everybody, Tim Kelly here. I'm getting ready to bring you a tutorial which will be done on the laptop, and I will do a voiceover as I go. I'm going to take a very faded image, portrait image, and do my very best to bring life back to it. Now you'll see online a lot of times if you're searching for how to fix a faded picture, there's not a lot of depth there. It's like find a white point, a black point, and put it on auto color, or there's just not much out there. But we've been doing this a long time, and it is kind of a tedious manual process. But in this case, again, I'm vested in the picture because it's one of mine that's been hanging on a wall for 40 years. Well, however long. 1972, I did this young man's senior portrait, and now it's like nothing but pink. I'm going to show you that image, okay? An outdoor image, not a lot like a current Tim Kelly, but this is what I was doing in the very early 70s. And it needs a lot of work, a lot of restoration, but we're going to make a scan of this, and I'm going to show you the steps, and I'm going to do a lot of before and after on it as well. But my hope is to make this very satisfactory or better for my client of all those years ago. So stay with me on this episode. We're going to do our very best to restore a faded portrait. Hey everybody, Tim Kelly coming to you for Master Photo Techniques. Today I'm in my music room. It's the quietest place to record, and it's been a while since I've done a desktop video for you. We got so involved with the success of our Speedlight series that it's kind of just taken us off to a new direction temporarily, but we are back again with professional techniques. I have my own way of repairing and restoring older photographs. There are certainly many people that do it really well, but in looking around, I didn't find a whole lot of tutorials on it. So I'm just going to share with my audience how I will bring back this old portrait from the dead. Now, you may not have images that old, but you might get an assignment to do one, or you might have a personal family project that you want to work on. So I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I use to revive this old faded photograph. Here we go. First thing I'm going to do is make a duplicate layer. It's always wise to preserve the original, no matter what it is. In this case, of course, this is a large scan of the 1620 that we showed you. Actually, in this case, there is no scan. It would have been shot with a high-resolution camera and then processed. And believe me, it was meticulously balanced when we shot it. So we created its own profile. We made it absolutely a perfect render of what was really left. And now we're going to go ahead and do some work on it. What I'm going to do first is just a manual color balance. Now we do have what appears to be a white in here, so we can attempt to do a click white, but first thing I'm going to just go by eye. Command B gives us our color balance palette. Start with my low tones, and I look carefully at them, and I'm going to say that they are very red, mostly magenta. So we're going to start by pulling some of the red out, and then we're going to pull some of the magenta out this way, of course. Now, it's not a bad idea to overcorrect because we can fade the color balance effect or the layer we're putting it on. So now we will look at yellows are okay. Highlights may have a hair too much yellow, but right now we're in the shadows. Going to go to the mids. Let's try increasing maybe some green and yellow in there. That does not help a lot, but the highlights are important, and that's where we're going to rebuild some color. We'll add some red, and we'll take out some of that blue. Now we do need, when we do that, we see that we've kind of lost a lot of the particular color intensity. So we're going to add saturation in a minute. think overall we probably just need to get some saturation back and a little bit of neutrality there. So let's just compare real quick. We've added green, so we're getting back to our roots there. Now, of course, we could do things, you'll see, in layers, where I may decide I have to do a separate color balance on his hair, on the background, and on his shirt. But this is a restoration, and that can be the only way to recover everything. So, if we hide that layer that we just made and go play with our second layer, we can try to do a click white color balance there. So let's do the level palette, levels, and go for white. See what we get. That's, of course, a lot more brilliant, isn't it? And then we'll go for black as well. All right. Not terrible, but of course a great exaggeration of what we need. So let's do this. Let's say okay to that. And let's fade it a tiny bit, which we can do over here. Fade the levels a little bit. 60 looks good. Let's color balance this layer a little bit. Let's add the red that we're thinking. Well, first of all, you can see the background needs a little yellow. The shadows are fairly good, though they need a little red. So I'll put a little red back in the shadows, right? And then in the mids, a little yellow. All right, and then highlight some red. It's getting better, definitely getting better. It's a little contrasty, but not terrible. And one of the things we can look at is fading it, as we did over here, which is File, I'm sorry, Edit, Fade Color Balance. And we'll just look at what we've done. And it looks improved. And sometimes, like I said, I overcorrect so I can fade my work a little bit. Just for kicks, look how different that is from what we achieved the first time. Here's the very first original, our next correction, and then our third correction is here, but we'll move it to the top. What if we fade that correction? All right, now we're flattening the contrast out a little bit, but we're losing a little bit of the color recovery. Getting very close though, and we can merge layers. If you remember, my background layer number 1 is unaffected. We're not going to lose data because we're keeping that right now. It definitely has to be retouched, for sure. So we're going to zoom in and take a look. Remember, this is 1970s film, 2 1/4 film, but not bad overall. A little bit of warmth again. Still, I'd say maybe some red yellow in the background. Hair's looking pretty good. It's got a little bit of a magenta edge to it. And then the face is definitely highlighted. So in the shadow and mids, since we're working on that layer right now, do a little color balancing to the shadow. And we're going to add a little green and a little yellow to it to hopefully get that background looking pretty again. Okay. Now, you may not love what it does to his face, but we can fix that. Now the mids need a little more pink and blue, just a little bit. And finally, highlights. Let's see. If we give it some red, what we get? It goes into his shirt a bit too much. I'm not loving that. But let's look and see what happens. All right. So I said we may have to start thinking about handling this separately. So generally, I'm pretty happy with this color balance. Still need some tuning for sure, but we can merge these two together and then do a direct comparison to the original. See what we've done. All right. Now, of course, you can see, if you go in real close, you can see the film issues, you know, which is just dust and dirt and whatever was on the original. And you never saw it in the portrait, of course. So I don't see a need to get a lot of the little imperfections out, but those that are on his face and eyes, we can do a couple quick methods. You know that I do like this healing brush a little bit, and that would be for taking out these major spots. I think it works really well. And that, of course, is right here. And the normal thresholds are very good. They work well. I saw a couple things down here I didn't like, but every single one will not be handled because of the magnification in the final print. You just won't see this stuff. I'm just going to clean up that neck that he's got going on there. And then after that, I'm going to open up his eyes a tiny bit. It just doesn't need a whole bunch. So let me do that. It's an open sky kind of lighting. So what we can do is a couple different things. We can just use a dodge tool and open up what's there. Just kind of lighten it up so we can see it better. Maybe on this side too. Kind of set for the midtones, which would work in this case. Yeah. And we'll see if that gives us a little more life in his eyes. It should. It looks pretty nice. Don't like that little catch light, but it's natural, so I'll leave it. Before and after. Let's cut the black a little bit. All right, that's 15 points. That's a lot. And it's looking more normalized to me now. But what we have to do is isolate the changes a bit. So we're still keeping the original, the new one, making a duplicate here. And this one will be for the background. All right, we'll call that background. And we're going to forget he's there. And we're just going to look at the background and see how we can colorize it to make it a little nicer. And we could colorize it, but I'm going to try and do it via color balance first. So we will give it some yellow. The shadows, we'll give it some little bit of green. How about cyan? Cyan is good. Again, just the trees, pretty much. That's too much. Blue is good, yellow is good. Kind of like the way the background looks for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just erase quickly the main subject. So just a quick reveal. All right, just to see what we're doing. Yeah, looks good. So from here to here, we've added background intensity pretty much. It's pretty good, and it's on its own layer. We can change it a tiny bit if we wish. So that is just that. Now we're going to look at just his face. I think the hair tone is fairly close. Let's look at his white top, which is on this layer. Another thing we can do there is just select it this way, get all the whites, what should be white anyway, his outfit. Now that we have pretty much the majority of the image ready, color-wise and density-wise, I'm going to see if we can just enhance the face alone at this point. What we'll have to do, of course, is grab that flesh, go back to layer 1, which is corrected to this point, and we will simply get his flesh onto a separate layer. I'll include his hair, even though we'll be able to erase that part of it. All right. The beauty of layers. The first version of Photoshop had only one layer, if you can imagine working that way. All right, now we'll go in a little tighter and we'll decide what it needs. Again, looking at just the face. Good. So now we're working just on, I'm going to call it face color, okay? So we can up the general saturation a little bit on this layer, and we can look at perhaps taking some green out of it, out of his face. The yellow level's good. I think I need more red. Okay. And then we're going to go back to the color balance a little bit. And it's a little red in the mids. It should be cleaner. So I'm going to go a little cyan, a little magenta, and highlights, little yellow. Let's see. Now just compare for kicks. See, that has no life. That has more warm tones. So for this particular layer, we may want to separately color balance his eyes a little bit. They might be too red for us. So we could, I'll use about 5 pixels. And I will go in here and fix these up a little bit and see what it needs. I masked for just the eyes. That's colder, bluer, and highlights here, a little pinky blue. So we may add some green yellow. It's the shadows that really have too much yellow, I think, in them. Yeah, so we'll minus a few points there. And that's healthier looking for him there. All right, so let's assume that where we are is getting pretty good. Might be a little too red or yellowy here. A little green here. This is deepest shadow. Whites look good. Background looks pretty nice. So let's go ahead and tie up some of this stuff. Here's the background layer. And we can try fading it to see. That's out, in, 60, 70, 80%. Like I said, we kind of always overcorrect a little bit. The white shirt, off, cleaned up a little bit. That's almost irrelevant. This is the face color, which is pretty nice. What we see here, though, is you can see it, watch right here, it's getting the extra warmth of his flesh into his hair, which we may not want. So what we can do with that is on that one layer of his face, we can erase some of that hair from getting too warm. So we'll go ahead and do that. Soft brush, a fairly low opacity. This way we're going back towards the hair that's underneath, which is not quite as hot. All right. And that should help. If this was a fresh out of camera image, we could judge it that way. I think any changes we need to make now, we can kind of make globally and then go in and do detail work. I see a little too much red yellow still in the eyes, but we'll fix that. I think what we should do is merge these other parts. We've determined what they look like. There's your before. It has almost no color. All right. And it's a long way from this one doing an auto color. You know, here's your auto color. It's improved, but it still stinks, right? So we have done that. I think it's looking good. I think it's unbelievable when you look at it that way. Add a little bit of highlight there on his nose. We could also use the dodge tool right here, create a little more highlight on his lip, greater dimension. This is like the painting part of photography, right? Put some of this polish in here. Looks pretty good right there. Much better, right? Let's compare it. Yeah, I think it looks a lot better. I think it's a pretty good lesson. And it should make a beautiful print. So, I appreciate you being with me today. And keep watching Master Photo Techniques. Thanks for watching and for subscribing.